Since 1947, the VFW's Voice of Democracy program has been inspiring America's youth. What is reflected in this program is an extension of America's values and its ideas. This premier scholarship program helps ensure our nation's heritage will never be lost and allows students the opportunity to give voice to how they perceive our nation and the many liberties afforded to them. Miss Christine Troll's outstanding entry based on the theme, Why My Vote Matters, earned her the esteemed title of 2018-2019 National Voice of Democracy winner and a $30,000 college scholarship. Christine represents the many thousands of young people who participate in the scholarship program annually, and she and her peers are truly the future of our country. What they are today, America will be tomorrow. Please join me in welcoming and celebrating Christine Troll's achievement as the 2018-2019 Voice of Democracy winner. Christine. Good job. You good?
Yes.
Take a deep breath and then
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. I would like to express how deeply grateful and humbled I am to have been asked to speak and be present here today. To fully convey my gratitude to the VFW and all that they do would take more than 1,000 words. At some point in every person's life, something happens to him or her, and after that, their life is never the same again. For me, that occasion has been my involvement with the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the Voice of Democracy programs. These programs have distilled in me an appreciation and love for the freedoms of this great nation and the sacrifice that they were built on. Not only does the Voice of Democracy contest give students like me a chance to make our patriotic voices heard, but also a chance to make your sacrifice seen. Any essay topic relating to America can be traced back to the soldiers and veterans, without whom the history of America could have never been written. In the years I have been involved with the VFW programs, I have met and come to know personally many veterans, every one of whom stands as a shining example of everything that our nation has been and still strives to be. Old glory has never been given. It was earned by the brave men and women that I'm looking at right now in this crowd, and by all like you that have come and fallen before us. Man has no greater love than this, that he should lay down his life for his friends. To every soldier and veteran here and everywhere in our great nation, you are my American heroes. Thank you for your service. It started out as a mundane Monday morning with the shriek of my alarm clock waking me up and dragging me off to school and work. I went through the motions lackadaisically until later that day I looked up during my food service job to see a man missing his right arm from the elbow down. Just as he walked out the door, a lump lodged in my throat and my stomach crawled into my chest as I caught the proud, golden words on his black cap, United States Marine Corps veteran. I spent the rest of the day with that veteran on my mind. He, along with every veteran, including my grandfather and uncle, sacrificed everything they had and everything they were to protect the basic human rights of every American, such as the right to religious freedom, the right to free speech, and the right to vote. However, I'm an American teenager. I'm worried about turning old enough to drive, not vote. Midterms and Inauguration Day will take place with or without my one teeny, unmeaningful vote. Yet, a few days later, I found myself lost in the chapters of my AP history book on our founding fathers. Suddenly, I was in Philadelphia on September 17th, 1778, at the Constitutional Convention. I found myself surrounded by the giants of history who, from a fragile moment in our nation's birth, orchestrated in the second article of our Constitution a voting system of checks and balances, guaranteeing every American citizen, not just the politically elite, the right to help decide who represents us, what issues they address, and how they spend our money. Every American citizen deserves the efficacious right and fundamental responsibility to make his or her voice and opinion heard. And that's exactly what voting grants us. To quote President Lyndon Johnson's maxim, "This right to vote is the basic right, without which all others are meaningless." My vote matters because my rights matter. Fast forwarding 133 years and 200 pages, I found myself in Washington, D.C. in 1920 on August 18th. After a civil war, several constitutional amendments, and risky suffragette activism, people of every race and gender gathered to celebrate the quintessential right to vote that all citizens have finally been granted. Voting identifies us as full American citizens whose opinions can influence the nation's future. Many voters feel a sense of powerlessness, since the chance that their one vote will solely determine the fate of the president is very slim. Nonetheless, when has America ever been about the individual? We are a nation as a whole, united, indivisible house under God, and each vote makes up a brick of that house. Whether black, white, man, or woman, our voices matter. My vote matters because I matter. After 13 years and 7 more chapters, I landed in the company of hundreds of German citizens in the streets of Berlin on January 30th, 1933. Some were cheering exuberantly, declaring "Heil Hitler," while others seemed frozen in fear, their expressions blank and chalky. I swallowed with difficulty, knowing the millions of lives about to be lost to the horrors of war. Hitler stands as an optimal example of why pure democracies, as well as total dictatorships, lead to utter collapse. Pure democracies allow for a candidate who is willing to exploit the fears and angers of the people to gain power, just as Hitler did. Nevertheless, when he took complete control without the consent of the people, disaster struck. A nation where the citizens are not allowed a fair say in their leadership always results in disintegration. With this conundrum in mind, our founding fathers created a democratic republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. My vote matters because the consequences matter. 85 years later, back in 2019, I wake up again to the shriek of my alarm. I have not seen that veteran with the black cap again, but I have encountered others, every one of whom I thank for their service and sacrifice. Each of them, as well as many of my own friends who have recently enlisted in the military, have given Americans the meaningful, extraordinary privilege to influence the future by voting for what they feel will create a more perfect union. My vote matters because their sacrifice matters. Next year, thanks to those who have fought and fallen for my freedom, my vote will be counted in the polls. And it won't just count, it will matter. Thank you.